Which leads on to a great question, which no one really seems to be discussing, about business models. How does 3D as a service, and a service compatible offering with 2D, what's going to be a winning business model? Now, I'm going to say you're in a happy position if you supply equipment.
Exactly.
So you can sign up to this one.
Yeah.
But so yourself, Simon, where do you see the business models?
I mean, from the service provider point of view, I mean, clearly the pay TV operators have got a business model for being first, delivering a premium content to their premium consumers, and it's very obvious if you look at particularly Sky in the UK. It's very obvious their business model behind launching a 3D channel to their top tier customer, because it gets more people into the top tier. So there are those business models. I think there is a challenge around obviously once again, as we had with HD, the challenges for the free-to-air business model, free-to-air content providers, the ad-funded, the commercial services, because are people going to pay more for a 3D ad than they did for a 2D ad? Well, they certainly didn't pay more for an HD ad compared to an SD ad, but if you could do adverts or switch adverts on a event by event basis and have a 3D ad in the middle of a bunch of 2D stuff, and you could somehow get people to wear the glasses, then I could see maybe they could charge an uplift for, because the car manufacturers or Coke or whatever would want to be the ones out there doing a 3D ad. But it's very uncertain as to whether that's going to.
That's a great thing, isn't it? When people are fast forwarding on PVR's ads anyway.
Absolutely, and you make the adverts an event to watch, and then that's a good thing for the advert. But it's a challenge to do that.
Before we finish there about business model, will there be a free-to-air 3D, or where does DTT have a place?
Well, it's two different questions, but so from a free-to-air point of view, and again, if there are events that are of national importance and that kind of thing, then I can absolutely see that there being content available, particularly from the likes of the BBC, who have their funding model secured. In terms of DTT, it's technically feasible. It's perfectly technically feasible in the same way that it is on satellite and cable. Whether there's going to be the content available, whether there's going to be the drive to try and put it onto the DTT platform, who knows? So it's too early to say.
We asked the same question 5.5 years ago when we started with HDTV. What is the business model for the public and for the free-to-air broadcasters? And we were a little bit doubtful. We saw all the pay TV operators starting it. And I remember the discussions I had with some of our free-to-air customers, and they said, oh no, we just wait, and doesn't add anything to our business. And then suddenly the world around them developed to be digital, or HD actually, and they had to follow.
I think it's difficult for a lot of the free-to-air providers simply because of the set-top box provision, and I know it's dirty to go down deep on the noughts and ones, but HDMI capability between set-top box and screen, what screen mode and what multiplexing modes are actually supported. I think that most of the big pay TV operators have been extremely skillful in negotiating the introduction of their latest and greatest high-capacity PVRs to have the right HDMI capability with the particular screen that they're endorsing. And I think that you do have to anticipate sort of even the suggestion that a public broadcaster would be able to use that capability if and when such an event happened that would justify going to 3D.
Well, if they are in HD TV, they could transmit in frame-compatible 3D. The set-top box, just thinking about the German market or Freesat in the UK, the HD set-top box would pass through the signal via HDMI, whether it's 1.2, 1.3 or 1.4, to the flat screen. The only thing the consumer has to do, of course, he has to have a 3D flat screen. He has to push the 3D button on the remote control and choose the side-by-side format. And the DVB is working on a standard, on a service information signaling that in an HDTV set-top box would then be converted into the respective HDMI 1.4a signaling to automatically switch the display. So that's actually looking not too bad, I believe.
Well, I think the switching points have to be there, and I think DVB-T2 offers that kind of switching point where you're introducing new infrastructure into the viewing public. Sky did a very clever move, as did DirecTV, and a number of people, where they basically locked down all of the functionality that you're talking about, because it is a complex issue about making at least 4 or 5 what are essentially de facto standards emerging to make up this sort of 3D delivery chain. And I think at some point you actually have to have a switch point where you're introducing new boxes with new capability, either the ability to take HD free-to-air or increased PVR capability. You need that point to be able to get all the elements in the chain to tie up, and the set-top box is the key in this.
So those who now bring T2 boxes into the market are well advised to then, as soon as possible, update them with the DVB 3D signaling, and then indeed you have the switching point. You can say all T2 boxes deployed, or that will be deployed as of when, Simon? Next year, or the T2 boxes?
Well, the T2 boxes are in the market.
Some are in the market now.
So
yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
So that is the switching point, actually.
It is, and I think coming back to the point you made about it's there for everyone technically, but have we reached a consensus where 3D is not inimical to free-to-air? There is a business model solution there. It won't be a niche for the privileged, rich few, which there will be a mass market available. And I'm going to come back to you, Mark, about sports development. Sport is about mass audiences. We're talking the likes of football. The business models are predicated on huge audiences in their millions, which is why ITV invest in the Champions League. Is that not a worry for you guys, that this might be a niche as you develop sports and technology for sports?
Well, I think at the moment it's a little bit of a niche, but I think that's only because of the, if you like, the uptake of technology. It'll always be early adopter, innovator style at the moment where we are. I think in the end, going forwards, I think whether it's a niche in the home consumer or whether it's offered on the platforms outside that. So basically, you have different subscription models around live versus VOD versus cinema event type stuff and modelling like that. Sky are operating in pubs as well, so they actually have a mass market 3D viewers before they actually went into the consumers' homes. So effectively they launched in April into pubs, and now they're going into homes as of last weekend.
Which they're very, very creative and really they have the legs to do that.